Dear participant, thank you for joining in time. We are waiting a couple of minutes so all the people can join, and then we are ready to start with our second webinar in the series of total 5 webinars. Okay, I think we have enough people, and I think most of them have joined. So let us start the series of webinar, and I would like to welcome the all of you, and I would also like to thank all of you for joining this important webinar on the adaptation. Some of you maybe have attended the first webinar that we have conducted on the 13th September. And due to some circumstances, we have to take a break in between, and now we are ready to resume our series of webinar. So this is, as you know, this is the series of 5 webinars, and today we are conducting the second webinar. And I would also like to inform you that the next 3 webinars is already in line. So the third webinar is the tomorrow, 9th October. The fourth one is on the 11th October, and the last one, the final one, is on the 15th October. So I think within the 1 week, we will complete this series of webinar. And as you know, the main idea, and from the title, you are very well aware that adaptation is a key area in this, specifically for the developing country in reporting uh, everything about the adaptation in the first BTR. Although it is voluntary, but of course, adaptation is the most important. And now with loss and damage and vulnerability and everything that all the developing countries are facing, this become a more important. And anyways, that all that national communication that we are preparing, we are reporting this under the national communication as a already one chapter, but now it will be also become a part of the BTR with the mitigation and also the greenhouse gas inventory. So this is, you can see the screen. This is the agenda of the today's webinar. Uh, we will start with the our next session. Those who are, I think I will share the PPTs of the first webinar to all of you, so you can also, and also of the today's PPT, so you can also have a look. And when you attend the next, you can have a link of the flow of the all these sessions. So the next session is section 3, about the overview of this section by, so we are following this section by section series from ABC, that everything about the national circumstances, what are the current arrangement in your country, what are the legal arrangement, legal framework about the reporting of the adaptation, what, how you are working, and under this BTR, how you can best way report the adaptation chapter. Also to link with this NAP and the also the other adaptation communication that you have prepared in your country, which you have already submitted maybe as a separate document to the UNFCCC. So then we have a one short quiz to know what you have understand about the adaptation reporting under the BTR. In the next session, we have a guest speaker from the Bangladesh. My friend, dear friend, Mohammad Hussein is already joined. So he will also share the experience of the Bangladesh. And in the Asia region, Bangladesh is quite advanced in this initiative, especially related to the adaptation and also in the loss and damage. So we will hear him that what he has and how Bangladesh is doing in the terms of the adaptation. And in the last, we also have some kind of group discussion. So maybe we will do a breakout room, or maybe in a one group to discuss about the some question that we have already formulated. So this is the quite of agenda of the today's webinar, the second webinar of this series. And our expert Slezana is already here. And I think some of you, if you have attended the recently adaptation series of webinar, Adaptation Academy in the Thailand, Bangkok, which was conducted by the UNFCCC. So she was also the key expert there to train this all the people, those who have participated in the Adaptation Academy in the Thailand. So we are very greatly benefited that Slezana is working with us also in the CBGSP, and she is a very versatile in the reporting of the adaptation and having lots of experience. So without wasting the time, I would request Lejana to please start the today's first webinar, second webinar, but the first session of the presentation. Yes, Lejana, thank you.
Thank you, Jaypal, for this introduction, and thank you. Good day to all of participants. I hope that with this we will continue, and you remember our first session and the information that we provided in the first session, and as an introduction to all instruments for adaptation communication within the UNFCCC system. And in the next 3 sessions, we will provide you the overview of the sections for the reporting of adaptation within the BTR. So let's start. I will share my presentation now. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As I said, in this session, we will provide you an overview of the sections A, B, and C of the adaptation reporting within the BTR. But before I start with actual information required by the guidelines of the BTR for the adaptation, I would like to share with you this very, very useful table provided by our CGA colleagues from the UNFCCC. This table provides an overview of the information, adaptation information required for different UNFCCC instruments for adaptation reporting. This can serve as a good basis for you when preparing your BTR, since it consists all adaptation instruments and requirements, their requirements for the adaptation. Comparing here BTR adaptation communication and NAPS and also national communication, and you can see here how much these informations are overlapping within the different adaptation communication instruments. So this can be a good base for you to know where to source different types of information necessary for your BTRs. As you can see here, the BTR consists the most comprehensive information for adaptation reporting. So BTR can serve as one like a base for other adaptation reporting instruments. So let's start within the overview of the sections of the E and B. The ABTR guidelines for the sections A and B seek from countries to provide information on national circumstances, institutional arrangements, and legal framework in section A, and also impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities in section B. Information requested by these two sections is critical in order to allow readers of the BTR to understand how country is vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change and what capacity it has to adapt to these circumstances. So the section A has to ensure that BTR include description about countries' key characteristics, and this information important for understanding the starting point for adaptation planning and implementation process at the national level. Information requested here can be divided in two broad categories. First one is information about countries' national circumstances that is found in bullet point A, and bullet point A of the this chapter, and information about institutional, legal, and policy framework relevant to facilitating adaptation under bullet points B and C, as you can see on this slide. So, national circumstances relevant to the adaptation. Information about the national circumstances relevant to adaptation is requested, as I said, by bullet point A, which asks countries to provide information about their national circumstances relevant to their adaptation actions. When asking for this information, bullet point A provides countries with a list of areas that would ideally be covered in the national circumstances sections. And these areas are biogeophysical characteristics, demographics, economy, infrastructure, and information on adaptive capacity. So in general, this list represents a very good starting point for providing required information under this bullet point A. In the next few slides, I will quickly go through these 5 areas to indicate what information you can include here. So start with the biogeophysical characteristics. In this area, countries can provide information about their geographic and environmental context, and this could include information about your country's climate, marine and land ecosystems, and the land use in your country, availability of your resources and security of your resources like water, land, and food, and your country's exposure to national disasters, including extreme weather events. The second area requested is demographics. And in this area, countries can provide information about the characteristics of countries' population, like population size, age, distribution, education, livelihoods, culture, and future trends of these characteristics. Also, information about disparities and differences between regional, ethnic, or cultural groups, or between genders, and also about poverty, development challenges that countries facing, and or related goals in that sense. The third area asked is economy, which is, more or less self-explanatory area and could include information about the characteristics of the national economy, like size, growth, reliance on certain and importance of certain sectors, and also future trends in these sectors. Also, that this can include information about differences between regions or rural and urban economies, and development goals related to the economy. The fourth area asked here is infrastructure, and it could include information about key public infrastructure like transport, power, water, health, and other sectors. Also, the present and continued ability of infrastructure to contribute to development goals, future trends and goals in regards of the infrastructure, and past losses and damage to infrastructure related to climate change. And the final area asked for here is information on adaptive capacity. Reporting on this is a bit different to the other 4 categories mentioned here previously, in so much as while it would make sense to describe biogeographical characteristics, demographics, economy, and infrastructure in this report separately, like in their own subsections, in practice, information about adaptive capacity could be integrated across the other 4 areas, as well as being included in its own standalone section. Information about adaptive capacity may be a bit trickier compared to the other areas mentioned here, as reporting on adaptive capacity is robust way or in a robust way would require countries to have conducted assessments of the adaptive capacity for different economic, social, and natural systems described in their national circumstances chapter. So in this regard, countries can focus on ability of institutions and systems to adjust to impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities, also opportunities to cope with these, and available resources and adaptation options in different sectors. In the absence of the formal assessments, adaptive capacity also could be conducted by using simple reasoning. For example, poverty in rural areas could be used as a grounds to generally conclude that adaptive capacity of rural farming systems is low. So to conclude this area, I would say that primary purpose of providing information about national circumstances in your country's report is to provide audience and readers with a basis for better understanding the underlying reasons for how the situation on ground that contributes to your country's vulnerability to certain climate hazards, and why your country is prioritizing certain areas for adaptation and certain types of adaptation actions for implementation. Information about institutional, legal, and policy frameworks is requested by bullet points B and C of the guidelines, as you can see in this slide. Additionally, to information about general national circumstances relevant to adaptation, guidelines are looking for countries also to provide information about their existing institutional arrangements and legal and policy frameworks that are designed to facilitate climate change adaptation. So in this context, the term national arrangements is referring to arrangements that exist between actors to facilitate and implement different aspects of the adaptation process. For example, communication channels, cross-ministerial committees, stakeholder consultation forums, data sharing agreements and flows, etc. Governance refers to how the responsibility for adaptation is allocated between different stakeholders. For example, which levels of government are responsible for planning and implementation your adaptation actions, and where does the mandates of the government's actors start and end. The term legal and policy frameworks refer to information on legal instruments and policies that direct adaptation action, assign responsibilities to certain actors, clarify governance structure, and establish institutional arrangements. In the meantime, regulations are legal instruments available to countries that form part of its legal policy framework. Usually, these frameworks are used to operationalize primary legislation by translating it in a specific sectoral requirements. The purpose of including this information in BTR is to allow audience and readers to understand the extent to which there is a robust legal and institutional basis that enables adaptation planning, implementation, and other adaptation-related processes, where the various roles and responsibilities lie in relation to adaptation processes, if and where there are gaps and in your country's institutional, legal, and policy frameworks. Also, institutional arrangements, just to remind ourselves, institutional arrangements refer to how organizations and structures are set up to handle specific tasks or responsibilities. These arrangements are different from country to country and depend on their circumstances, priorities, and the need to inform different stakeholders involved in implementing different initiatives. In some countries, a single organization structure may be responsible for different areas, while in some other countries, these responsibilities can be divided among different organizations and institutions. So in this context, institutional arrangements can be organized around 5 main components with different organizational mandates, expertise, data flows, coordination systems, tools, and stakeholder and engagement. When preparing report, countries need to decide to what extent they report on their institutional, legal, and policy framework in their BTRs. In the next few slides, I will introduce and explain 2 ways in which this issue can be approached and addressed. One of the ways is by taking a so-called light touch approach that would involve limiting your reporting to only the key aspects of your institutional, legal, and policy frameworks. For example, providing just a high-level overview of key acts, laws, or policies that mandate government and other actors to engage in adaptation. Also, key adaptation policy instruments like national adaptation policies and strategies, and key institutional arrangements like coordinating mechanisms for adaptation planning. This light touch actually can reduce the burden required to prepare the report, and actually it is lighter experience for a reader. Also, in cases where countries have already reported in depth on their institutional, legal, and policy frameworks in previous reports to the UNFCCC, if there has no major changes, countries can simply cross-reference to these descriptions and instead focus on providing updates for other parts of the BTR where there has been progress or change. However, the obvious drawbacks in this light touch approach are that audience will only be able to get a basic impression on how adaptation is governed in your country through reading your BTR on its own. Very good example on how a light touch approach can be seen is actually provided by the United Kingdom adaptation communication. In this document, the UK identifies and to a limited extent describes how responsibility for adaptation is divided between the 4 member countries of the United Kingdom. The legal basis for adaptation and some key institutional arrangements, those established by Climate Change Act only. Also, further, the information on other side of these links is actually quite heavy, sometimes over 200 pages. And therefore, by not providing even a bit more information, the UK has given readers a choice of either understanding very little or having to read a very large document. The other way is that countries may take a more comprehensive approach to providing this information. This approach can enable reader to better visualize the purpose, strengths, and modalities of the country's present setup and better understanding how it facilitates adaptation process. Achieving this would involve providing more detailed descriptions of their institutional, legal, and policy frameworks, and could include ensuring that all aspects of your country's institutional, legal, and policy framework are identified. Also providing more information on the objectives and modalities of specific institutional arrangements and legal and policy instruments, and identifying linkages between institutional arrangements and legal policy instruments. Also, identifying the actors involved in the adaptation, planning, and implementation, and describing their roles and responsibilities, and reporting on institutional arrangements and legal and policy instruments. Countries also could extend this information and also report on various strengths, limitations, and gaps on their institutional, legal, and policy framework. This could include, for example, highlighting where institutional arrangements are missing or needed, highlighting where institutions are unable or ineffective at fulfilling their mandate due to their insufficient technical capacity, lack of resources, contrasting priorities, etc., etc. Such information also would likely need to come from assessments, for example, assessments conducted during the scoping process for NAP or for NDC. To quickly sum up, it is important to say that there is no right or wrong approach to reporting on institutional, legal, and policy frameworks. Instead, each country will need to decide on how they approach this task based on what they want to achieve through providing this information. So moving to section B on impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities. The main goal of this section is to ensure that countries provide information about what climate change looks like within the geographic scope of their country, how their country is vulnerable to impacts of climate change, and how climate change and its impacts are projected to evolve in line with the future climate change. As with section A, the information requested here can be divided into broad categories. First one is information about climate trends, impacts, and vulnerabilities. That is found in bullet point A and B of the guidelines. And second one, information about methodologies and tools used in your analysis and assessment that can be found in bullet points B and C. Reporting on this area would be done over two steps, describing the past and projected changes in climate change and that country has experienced or facing, and also describing how the country is vulnerable to and is being impacted by changes in climate, and how these vulnerabilities and impacts are expected to develop in the future. Here is just a short reminder on the basic terms that we will use through this section of the presentation about impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities. Reporting on this area would be done over two steps, as I said, describing past and projected changes in climate in the country, and also describing how country is vulnerable to and is being impacted by these changes in climate. The first step is covered by information about current and projected climate change trends and hazards. This information is going to come from assessments of past meteorological data twinned with climate modeling exercises. The reference to both climate trends and hazards in the guidelines implies that countries should, if possible, include information about past and projected climate change in the frequency and strength of national disasters related to climate change, or, for example, extreme weather events, as well as information about the longer-term trends that has typically been included in adaptation-related reports. Additionally, countries could include a description of how these results of the most recent climate modeling are different from the previous attempts, or, for example, how has situation changed since the last assessment was conducted, and has the situation become more severe. The second step is covered by bullet point B and asks countries to provide information about observed and potential impact of the climate change, and this including sectoral, economic, social, and environmental vulnerabilities. The second part, including sectoral, economic, social, and environmental vulnerabilities, suggests that countries should provide disaggregated information about how key dimensions of the certain country are vulnerable. So practically, this is likely to mean key economic sectors identified as most vulnerable, like agriculture, water, health, and human systems like cities, regions, environmental systems, coastal zones, different ecosystems, etc. Information relating impacts and vulnerabilities will need to come from impact, risks, and vulnerability assessment, many of which will be conducted by national governments as a part of preparation of their national communication. So moving to the item requested by section B, which is the methodologies and tools used in your analysis and assessment of climate change trends and past and future adaptation impacts and vulnerabilities. Request for this information is made by bullet point C and ask countries to provide information about approaches, methodologies, and tools used in generating information to climate change and its impacts, and associated uncertainties and challenges with these approaches, methodologies, and tools. This section is asking countries to be transparent and clearly describe how and where information about past and projected climate changes, impacts, and vulnerabilities come from, as well as to highlight any uncertainties and challenges that are associated with the approaches, models, tools, and data that countries has used. In cases where information comes from the institutionalized processes that are conducted periodically, like climate projections or national risk assessment that are conducted every 5 years, countries could also identify and describe these processes. This approach, again, example from United Kingdom's adaptation communication, provides audience with an overview of information about climate change and impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities, instead of presenting the results of projections and risk assessment documents. Information included in this description includes identifying the processes, identifying the institutions and actors that were involved, outlining the scope and limitations of these processes and how they have recently been enhanced, and also highlighting when these processes were last undertaken or will next be updated. When adopting this light touch approach, it would be good practice sorry, to ensure that the report provides links to publicly accessible and available websites, reports, and other resources, which then enables the reader to access the much more technical and detailed information that is not being included in a report as itself. This information could also include detailed explanation of the approaches, methodologies, models, and processes. So before I conclude this part of the presentation, I would like to provide some reflections on the reporting on climate trends, impacts, and vulnerabilities. Basically, guidelines for reporting on climate trends, impacts, and vulnerabilities under BTR have not really changed from those issued for national communication in decision 17 CPA, and countries should be well aware of what they are required to report into this section. So countries more or less are very, very familiar with information necessary to provide in this section. In any case, reporting on climate change impact and key vulnerabilities remains one of the most important dimensions of the national communication for most non-Annex 1 parties, and this is probably continue through their BTRs. That represents actually one opportunity to effectively communicate to the international community how climate change is impacting your country and how climate change is expected to continue impacting your country. Also, reporting context of this information is vital for adequately framing why certain areas have been identified as priorities for adaptation and why the certain adaptation actions have been selected. For example, information about impacts and risks underline why the specific strategic approach is being taken by your country, but also it is crucial for framing the scale and magnitude of your country's adaptation needs. To do this effectively, countries need to ensure that information provided in these reports is clear, comprehensive, and easy to read, regardless of how robust or technically advanced the assessment underlying this information are. To finish this section, I would like to highlight the Bangladesh third national communication As an example of the report that does a really excellent job of presenting the climate impacts that country is facing and its many vulnerabilities to these impacts. So Bangladesh's third national communication provides readers with comprehensive and long section about impacts and vulnerabilities. It is very well structured chapter that is effective in presenting how key climate variables have changed over the past 5 to 6 decades and how key sectors and the geographic areas are vulnerable to the impacts of the climate change. In particular, vulnerability assessment in this national communication are extremely well written and detailed, and as a result, provide the reader with a clear idea of the many different ways in which the sector or region in question is being impacted and is expected to continue to be impacted by certain climate hazards. These sectoral and geographic assessments do a really good job of communicating the magnitude of impacts and risks through good use of statistic and informative visualizations. One of these you can see on the right side of this slide. All in all, this approach actually demonstrates the scale of past and future climate hazards, the size of the areas at risks, and past and anticipated losses and damages due to climate change impacts. The guidelines for the section C and D request information about the forward-looking aspects of your country's national adaptation process, specifically information about adaptation priorities and barriers in section C, adaptation plans and actions, and in section D, and in the context of the reporting, providing information requested by these sections actually represents the first step in reporting of adaptation. As such, information required by this section is key to reporting on what your country is doing to adapt to the adverse effects of the climate change that has identified in the section B. So in the next slides, we will focus more on the section C. The main goal of the section C is to ensure that BTRs present and describe your country's priority areas for adaptation. And in addition to this, the guidelines also ask countries to provide information on adaptation barriers and gaps that are or expected to hinder or inhibit effective adaptation in your priority areas. So starting with the first area, priority areas for the adaptation. This information is requested by bullet point A and asks countries to provide information about their domestic adaptation priorities. So the term priorities in this context or priority areas can be understood as areas for which adaptation actions is being prioritized due to their high vulnerability to climate change, their relative strategic importance to the country as a whole, a mixture of these two approaches, and their strategic importance in enabling adaptation. So what is defined as a priority area is fundamentally a country-led decision. As such, priority areas can take a variety of shapes and forms. Probably the most recognizable form of priority area are those that are sector-based. And this could include economic sectors like sectors and industries, policy areas, for instance, DRR, poverty alleviation, etc., regions focusing specific regions, areas and cities, rural urban areas or coastals, and highlights zones, and also different ecosystems like rainforests, wetlands, and coral reefs, etc. So, as I said at the beginning, it's entirely a country-led decision of which approach you will take. Also, while we have here framed priority areas as sectoral, priority areas can also be cross-cutting in their nature. So in other words, they can relate to areas that are key in enhancing the enabling environment for adaptation planning and implementation, and they then could include institutional capacity building, strengthening climate information services, resource mobilization, strengthening awareness and knowledge of climate change impacts, and etc. As a key step in developing an adaptation strategy or plan, it would be expected that priority areas can be identified within the key planning instruments. For developing country, this is mostly national determined contributions, national adaptation plans, and also flagship development plans or development plans that have climate change mainstreamed into them. And this information may also be identified in other planning-oriented instruments like laws, strategies, policies, white papers, etc. As with all information requested by the BTR guidelines, countries will need to decide on how they are going to report on their domestic adaptation priorities in their BTRs. As was done in the last presentation, over the next few slides, I will introduce and explain two broad ways in which this can be approached. A light touch approach to reporting on adaptation priorities would be to identify within the BTR the key areas that your country considers to be a priority for adaptation. Since any priority areas are likely to have been established by planning and policy instruments, if possible, BTRs should identify which planning or policy instruments established these areas as priorities, and thereby allowing interested readers to allocate to locate this information as elsewhere. A nice example of how this approach would look in practice can be seen also again in Bangladesh's third national communication, shown on the right side of this slide. In this example, Bangladesh simply lists 14 adaptation priorities in a table format that have been identified as priorities by its first national NDC, and its most recent flagship development plan, its seventh five-year plan. This, as we can see on the picture on the right side, is a very good and an efficient way of ensuring that information is included clearly in a large international reports. Additionally, when reporting on specific adaptation priorities, countries should describe priority, including when and where it was set. So to identify statement, plan, piece of legislation, to locate more precisely where the area was originally designed as a priority. Also, countries should elaborate on why it should be prioritized for adaptation. Also, to describe any high-level goals or targets associated with adaptation priority and inform progress towards achieving these goals. Moving to the second area of information requested by the section C, which is barriers to adaptation. Section C asks countries to provide information about barriers, challenges, and gaps to adaptation. While this term is often used to refer to capacity-related barriers, challenges, or gaps, for example, barriers relating to insufficient technical capacities or finances, countries also could report on adaptation limits. For example, hard or soft limits to adaptation that are caused by socioeconomic or environmental circumstances. Of course, if such information is relevant and available. Information about the barriers, challenges, and gaps included in the BTR would ideally result from structured process known as a barrier analysis. In these processes, analysis, barriers to both adaptation planning and implementation are systematically analyzed through engaging with experts and stakeholders. Where countries have conducted such assessments, descriptions of barriers, challenges, and gaps provided in BTR should reflect the results of these analyses. Most likely, the barrier analysis is actually conducted during the preparation of your country's key planning instruments like NDCs, NAPs, and adaptation strategies. And probably resources of data are analysis of barriers and gaps conducted during formulation of NAPs or adaptation strategies, as well as from evaluation of these plans and strategies. So at the end, countries seeking information about identified barriers could expect to find this information in these documents. So as I started at the beginning of this presentation with UNFCCC instruments and adaptation communication, in addition to that, in regards to your BTR, just to stress that you can use also, and you should use also, all other relevant information for certain sections of adaptation BTR that are consisted in your other planning documents, development strategies, also in scientific papers, etc., etc. So all documents that are that are actually adopted, officially adopted, publicly available in order to make them available to a broader group of your report readers. So I'll stop here now. Thank you very much for the attention, and if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer.
Thank you so much, Lejana, and for the very comprehensive presentation with the example from the NAP and the adaptation communication. So, as Lejana mentioned, we are happy to answer. If you have any question, any suggestion, please unmute your mic and you can share your experience also. We will share these PPTs from today's webinar and also from the first webinar if you have not received to everyone. So you can raise hand or you can directly unmute your mic and ask the question.
Hello, uh,
Yes,
can
yes.
you? I just want to make a clear clarification regarding barriers to adaptation. We know that we have some the big issue in the financial side. So how you cope up with this adaptation because of the because of these barriers, the financial barriers we have.
Thank you very much for your question. I hope that I understood well. You asking about barriers reporting and more specifically about financing adaptation as barriers in your adaptation process. I can say here that the BTR is reporting oriented instrument. So you will point out all barriers to your adaptation process as well as finance gaps. You can also mention in that context what was good, what was bad, what is sufficient for your adaptation process, and what has been implemented or provided so far by your own country, but has been provided by other from other sources. But this is in general just information that you need to provide. You know, why do you have these gaps? That is also one part of uh, uh, this section. So why do you have these barriers? Is that because of your capacity, lack of the capacities, lack of capacities of the institutions to maybe apply for some adaptation funds to streamline your adaptation processes, or is lack of sectoral planning in the context of streamlining your adaptation processes? You can explain that within your BTR report, as well as other barriers that you probably have. It is important to state this in a BTR in order to allow the reader to see situation in your country and potential support needs in context of your adaptation process.
Yes, well understood. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sarat. And if anyone has any question, please feel free to speak.
Hi, I'm Katie from Neo Climate Solutions. I just wanted to ask regarding the climate trends, impacts, and vulnerabilities, that section, which talks about the future climate projections or what are the vulnerabilities. Can we refer, like, so we need to describe again what are the future climate trends, or we can just refer to the other national documents, national communications in this section? And just highlight what are the impacts.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. In this regards of this information, you will use the most recent information that you have. In that context, I know that countries do not perform that kind of the assessment every year. More or less, that's like every 4 years within your national communications or some other maybe scientific research that you have performed recently. So you will refer to most recent information in this regard that you have.
Sure, thank you so much.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, so until I receive any further question, in the next round, we have a small icebreaker, kind of some quiz, simple quiz. We have a 3 question, and the just you have to answer true or false, and uh, we will see how do you understand about the adaptation from the today's webinar, and also if you attended the first webinar also. Let me start this. If you have any question, then of course we are happy to cover that. Otherwise, we will go for the small quiz through a Mentimeter. I will share the QR code, and I will also putting the link in the chat box of the Mentimeter quiz. You can see in the chat box, you can directly access, or you can also scan the QR code in the screen. It's just a 3 simple question, true and false, and we have converted in a kind of a quiz. So those who answer correct, we will also able to see the who are answering correct. So please enter your name also when you access this Mentimeter quiz. I can see some player have already joined. Those who are not able to scan, just click the link in the chat box. Okay, we have around 29-30 people, so let's start. PTR ask country to provide information on national circumstances on adaptation action, institutional arrangement and governance, and the third one is the legal framework. Is it true or false? 15 people have already answered. 20. Okay, we have 22 answer, and yeah, almost 99% are the correct. So that's a good thing. And if we see who has answered the fastest, okay, someone named Ted is the fastest answer. So great, but you have also chance to be a go on the top. We still have a two more question. So let's do the second question. As adaptation reporting is a country-driven exercise, countries should feel free to determine whether they want to do this or not. Last 5 seconds. Okay. 17 people are correct. Let's see the result. Okay, Ted is still, but the fastest answer by the Grace. Okay. You can see the name on your screen. That if you are not, if you don't know that what is the name of your Mentimeter, then you can see also. So we have a Grace, then Dr. Centipede and the puppy. Let's see the last. All players have joined. The last question is BTR ask information on climate trends and vulnerabilities, methodologies and tools, and support received when needed. So is it true or false? Okay, we have received more than 20 responses in 5 seconds. Okay, almost all of them are the correct. Yes, because support needed and receive is not a part of that. Okay, so let's see the final result. Okay, Grace has not given a right answer, so Vito has win the all this round, and maybe I can ask someone who is the Vito. Maybe you can turn on your camera. You are the winner of our today's quiz. Just see your name on the screen. Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering the all the quiz question. And in the next round, we have our guest speaker, Mr. Mohammad Hussein. Yes, Mr. Selda.
Sorry, Jepal, for interrupting you. Just to refer to the second question when we said that, adaptation is a completely country-driven exercise, and then the country can decide whether to report adaptation within BTR or not. That's the true, actually. You don't need to report your adaptation within your the BTR, and you can continue to report adaptation as usual through your national communications. So you can continue to report adaptation every 4 years within your national communication, but there are many reasons for reporting information on adaptation within your BTR that we already, some of them we mentioned within our presentations, and some of them we will talk about during the next session. So the country needs to consider what are the reasons for reporting certain information within your BTR, and actually what they gain with providing international community with such information. So just in short, thank you.
Thank you, Slejana. And with this, we will move to the next activity. So we have a guest speaker from the Bangladesh, and we have already shown the example of the Bangladesh in the presentation and what they have done specifically in the adaptation. It's really remarkable and commendable from the government and the Ministry of Environment. So I I would like to thank to the our colleague and friend from the Ministry of Environment, Mr. Mohammad Hussain. He is the Deputy Director in the Department of Climate Change, and he is a very well uh, expertise, or who you can say the famous person in the transparency related. So if you have attended the COP or the all this event, maybe you are aware of him, and you maybe met him during this all this climate change meetings all over the. So uh, I would like to thank to especially to even agree to attend this in a short notice. So uh, without wasting the time, I would like to invite the Mr. Mohammad Hussain from the Department of Climate Change Environment Ministry to share the experience of the Bangladesh, and whatever you want to convey to the all this Asian country, how you have dealing this, how you have reported this adaptation in national communication, plus preparation of the adaptation plan and everything that Bangladesh is doing. So the floor is yours. Please, Mr. Mohammad Hussain.
Thank you, Jaipal. Colleagues from CBGSP and distinguished participant, good afternoon. I am Mahmoud Hossain. I am working as a Deputy Director at the Department of Environment under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in Bangladesh. I am honored to have the opportunity to speak about one of the most critical challenges of our time, climate change and its impacts on Bangladesh. As we all know, climate change is not just an environmental issue, but a multifaceted crisis affecting lives and livelihoods and sustainable development across the globe. Bangladesh, as one of the most climate vulnerable countries, stands on the front lines of the crisis. Today, I would like to share with you some insights on Bangladesh vulnerabilities to climate change, the impacts we have been experiencing, and some major initiatives we are taking to build resilience and adapt to climate change. Bangladesh is one of the most innocent victim of climate change, though its global GHG contribution is only 0.48%. Bangladesh is ranked 7th as most climate vulnerable countries according to Global Climate Risk Index 2021. World Bank study shows that for a 1 meter sea level rise could affect our 1.5 million, and for a 2 meter rise could affect 2.8 million coastal people will be displaced in coastal area of Bangladesh. And the average sea level rise in the coastal zone of Bangladesh is 3.8 to 5.8 millimeter per year over the last 30 years. We have find this statistics from recent conducted study conducted by DOE, and it is estimated that sea level rise alone could be responsible for a 5.8 to 9.1% decline in our rice production. Why Bangladesh is highly vulnerable to climate change? Actually, Bangladesh geographical location is in a deltaic landscape, whereas 80% lands are floodplain, and about 68% area is vulnerable to flood, and 25 to 30% area is inundated during the flash flood. And three major rivers of the globe drain their water through Bangladesh, and almost 50% of the country land is within 6 to 7 meters from mean sea level rise, and almost 1/3 of the total land in our country is in coastal area, and 39 million people live in the coastal area. So, as one of the most climate vulnerable countries, we are facing several climate disasters in Bangladesh. We have erratic rainfall, floods, landslide, drought in our northern regions, cyclone, tropical storms, and storm surge in our, especially in our southern part. We are facing also heat wave, cold wave, and dense fog. We have sea level rise, we have river bank and coastal erosion. Salinity intrusion is another major disaster in our southern part. We have increased of lightning. So what we are doing to address our climate change, we have a constitutional directive in 2011 towards achieving environment and climate resilient sustainable development. We formulated our Bangladesh Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan. We called it BCCSAP in 2009. Which was one of the most credible initiative of any developing countries to address climate change in a comprehensive manner. Besides that, we have established Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund in 2009-2010 fiscal year to implement the programs and projects identified in our Bangladesh Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan. And this fund is the first Bangladesh is the first country to set up such fund from its own resources. And so far we have allocated over 500 million US dollar and implementing 969 projects through this fund. We prepared our National Adaptation Program of Action in 2005, and in 2009 it is revised, where we identified 45 adaptation measures covering 8 thematic areas. We have also formulated and submitted our National Adaptation Plan to the UNFCCC in 2022. It is considered the main strategic document under the UNFCCC process to implement prioritized adaptation action. We are emphasizing our implementation of our National Adaptation Plan now. We have Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100, 100-year strategy, which was formulated in 2018 to deal with our riverine and coastal adaptation issues, especially to secure the future water resources and mitigate likely effects of climate change and natural disasters. We have formulated National Plan for Disaster Management in 2016. We have prepared climate fiscal framework in 2014, and in 2020 we have updated it. Actually, this climate fiscal framework is developed to manage climate finance systematically and make our public finance system ready to utilize national and international climate finance in the most efficient and effective way. Besides that, besides the policy and regulation, we have undertaken a lot of concrete actions. Like we have established flood forecasting and warning system, warning center to generate and provide flood forecast and warning information. We have community radio in the coastal and climate vulnerable areas. We have established more than 500 mujib killa, a specially designated raised land as a shelter during the natural hazards. We have established 4,200 over 4,200 cyclone shelters all over the coastal area. We have constructed 320 flood shelters, and additional almost 400 flood shelters are being constructed. We have more than 10 million volunteers who are engaged in disaster risk reduction under the cyclone preparedness program. And we have also almost 46,000 urban volunteers who are also working for urban safety and climate resilience. So as we have National Adaptation Plan, I want to say something about our National Adaptation Plan, NAP. The NAP we have formulated in 2020 is the plan for 27 years. It is from 2023 to 2050. In the plan, we have identified 113 adaptation interventions, whereas 90s are high and 23s are considered as moderate priority actions. And we have identified total 8 thematic areas. Total tentative budget for the implementation of our National Adaptation Plan is worth 230 billion USD. And for the thematic areas, we have identified 6 core areas: water resources, disaster, social safety and security, agriculture, fisheries, aquaculture and livestock, urban areas, ecosystem, wetlands and biodiversity. These 6 and then 70% for urban areas, 12% for disaster and social safety. So water resource sector is the most vital sectors for our National Adaptation Plan. And for National Adaptation Plan, we have identified some key adaptation intervention, like for water resources. In our investment plan of NAP intervention, we have identified that we need integrated management of coastal polders, sea dikes, cyclone shelter to address sea level rise and storm surge. We need to manage our fresh water resources and monitoring of salinity for reducing vulnerabilities in existing and potential saline prone areas. We need to dredging of all major and medium rivers for accommodating and smooth drainage of exceeds flood water during climate induced extreme events. And we need to develop internal drainage management and climate resilient development of chord and island areas in our country. For disaster, social safety and security, we have identified some key intervention as construction and rehabilitation of gender and disability sensitive, multi-purpose and climate resilient accessible cyclone and flood shelter for safe drinking water, sanitation, livestock shelter facilities, etc. We need to implement of thunderstorm and lightning risk management measures in highly susceptible areas in our country. We need to protect and enhance resilience against our internal displacement for climate change, with particular focus on gender and disability. Then we need to increase the coverage of social security, social safety net program for building community-based resilience and adaptive capacity. For agriculture sector, we have identified that we need to extend of climate smart technologies for increasing irrigation water for efficient use. We need to augment of surface water for irrigation and multi-purpose use. We need to extend of stress tolerant, pest and disease resistant rice and non-rice crops. For ecosystem, wetland and biodiversity core area, we need to have extension and expansion of coastal green belt for protecting coastal habitats, including mangrove, salt marsh, etc. We need community-based afforestation and reforestation for biodiversity conservation, enhancement of ecosystem resilience and increasing carbon sequestration. We need to expand ecosystem-based adaptation for restoration of mangrove, hill and wetland to tackle adverse impact of climate change. For urban area, we need to improve of natural and artificial stormwater drainage network for reducing vulnerabilities of urban flood and drainage congestion. We need to have expansion and conservation of green and blue infrastructure for improvement of urban environment and drainage system. We need to establishment of climate resilient health care facilities in urban areas. In our national adaptation plan, we have emphasized our gender, old person and disabilities for adaptation intervention. We ensuring adequate space facilities and equal accessibility in climate-induced disaster preparedness. We focus on climate resilient housing. We emphasize on accessibility to healthcare facilities. So how we implement our NAP? As we have formulated our national adaptation plan, now we are focusing on implementation of our national adaptation plan. We have some institutional arrangement and coordination body. We have an existing National Environment Council, which is called National Council on Environment and Climate Change, and it is headed by our Prime Minister. We have Interministerial Steering Committee on Climate Change, ISCCC, which is headed by Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. This committee will steer the NAP implementation, and we have also National Technical Advisory Committee on Climate Change. We called it NTACCC, which is headed by our Secretary of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The Technical Advisory Committee will be supported by two groups. One is Technical Working Group on NAP implementation, and another one is Technical Working Group on NDC implementation. And we have some regional body existing like District Development Coordination Committee, which is chaired by our Deputy Commissioner of district level, and we have multilateral and effective coordination with multi-level stakeholders. So these are the institutional arrangement for our NAP implementation. And we have organized several workshop and dissemination workshop and coordination meeting with our relevant key stakeholder ministries and agencies for proper implementation of our national adaptation plan. And in our national adaptation plan, we have emphasis on private sector engagement. We have coordination with our Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Commerce, Economic Relation Division, Bangladesh Bank, and National Board of Revenue, who will track the progress of private sector engagement in National Adaptation Plan. And we have for the potential business products for private sector engagement, we mainly focusing on stress tolerant seeds, climate resilient and eco-friendly construction materials, climate resilient housing and infrastructure development, dredging and reuse of dredging materials, green and renewable energy-based product, expansion of ports and water transport, ecotourism, like this. For this intervention or initiative, we'll have a potential business product for the private sector. For tracking the progress of our adaptation, mitigation, or financial issues in our country, we have developed a Bangladesh Climate Change MRP system under the CBIT project last year. Through this MRP platform, we will tracking the progress of our adaptation, mitigation, climate finance, and greenhouse gas inventory relevant data. And the platform is acting as a data sharing between the relevant stakeholders in our country. And climate finance is one of the most important issues for adaptation. So we have identified that we will require 230 billion US dollar for our NAP implementation between 2023 to 2050, which means 8.5 billion US dollar will be required per year for the implementation of our national adaptation plan. Besides that, we will also require a substantial amount for our NDC implementation, and we have some other plan and policies related to climate change. The financial mechanism, we have our domestic resources like Bangladesh Climate Trust Fund. We have annual development program for international resources. We are working with Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund, LDC Fund, Global Environment Facility. So we are trying from our both from our domestic resources and the international climate finance to implement our national adaptation plan. And now we are preparing our biennial transparency report. Actually, the BTR preparation process is initiated in the early this year. UNEP is providing technical support in BTR preparation process in Bangladesh. Bangladesh intends to formulate its first BTR by June 2025. Actually, we cannot submit our BTR by December 2024, but as a LDC country, we have relaxation, and we will take the opportunity to submit it by June 2025. And for BTR preparation, we will formulate our first BTR along with our fourth national communication together under this process. Thank you. That's all from my side. If you have any question, I can try to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammad Hussain, and thank you for the very comprehensive information about the not only the adaptation in but all the activity that you have performed, and also the linkage with the BTR, National Communication plus CBIT project, the National Adaptation Plan. And I would also like to inform the people that Bangladesh is the one of the country that started the CBIT project very early, and they have completed the first phase, and now they are moving towards the second phase. So they get a very good opportunity with this CBIT project. They have not only focus on the mitigation or the inventory, but they also focus on the adaptation part, and they have specifically located some fund, some organizing some workshop webinars for specifically to what people those who are working on the adaptation. So to building the capacity of the all the people, that's the very good initiative by the Bangladesh. And from the talk of the Mr. Mahmood, you also understand that what is the coverage of that activity that they are doing in the Bangladesh, and how effective. And if you are active in the COP negotiation, you are aware that Bangladesh is one of the leader kind of initiative they have taken specifically also in the loss and damage also in the all the negotiation. So I would like to thank Mr. Mohammad Hussain for your time and also sharing this very important information with all the our Asian countries, those people from those who are working in the adaptation and climate change. So if you have any question or if you want to know anything related to the Bangladesh efforts, specifically in the adaptation, please feel free to ask him. He is a very well expert in this area and also working from so many years in this environment and climate change and everything. So I would wait for 1 or 2 minutes if anyone has any question to uh, regarding Bangladesh or anything also from our first presentation. So there is a one question in the chat that if you could tell some information about the preparation of the roadmap for your country related to the adaptation and the mitigation. So I think they have also prepared the one ETF roadmap, which is you all are aware that we are now implementing the enhanced transparency framework. So maybe Mr. Mohammed can tell something about the also that ETF roadmap tool and also the adaptation and everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaypal. We have formulated our ETF roadmap recently. It is available in a website. Besides that, for NAP, we are in a process to develop our NAP implementation roadmap, working with ADB to formulate this roadmap.
Thank you. And if there any other question or anything, you can also say the experience if you want to say something. Yeah, Miss Reza.
Thank you, Japal. Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud, for very, very comprehensive presentation of your situation when it comes to the adaptation reporting and implementation, which can serve really as a great example for to the other countries. And I really recommend to country representatives to go to the UNFCCC register and to review your documents as I said, a great example. So from your great presentation, I noted some things I think important, which is that you have self-funding for certain activities within your NAP process, which is great. To report within your adaptation reports, BTR and others, to show to the international community that you have certain capacities to fund your adaptation process by yourself, but also you have to note some other issues or actions that you need support from the multilateral funds and other funding sources in order to streamline your adaptation process. Also, I see that you have established institutional arrangements specifically for NAP process, engaged key stakeholders also. And my question, I have actually two questions about do you experience any challenges in your institutional arrangements and governance or legal policy frameworks? Is there something missing or you would like to improve for your adaptation in regards of your adaptation process or in regards of your reporting adaptation? So challenges, and also you says that you have established your M&E system for adaptation. My question is whether is it functional, and can you say a bit more how you have designed it, who is involved in that process, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Slajana. Actually, we have formulated and submitted our NAB in 2022, and we have actually the NAB interventions are closely related to other ministry rather than our Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Some cross-cutting issues are related to our ministry. So we are fully dependent to our ministries and agencies. It's a like of big challenges. However, we have some committees, and our ministry has organized several meetings, coordination meetings, and workshop. So we are trying to make a coordination among the related stakeholders. So it's not a big challenges, but the challenge is that we actually require substantial financial resources. That's the big challenge for us as a still as a LDC country. And for your second question, we have developed a MRV system. We called it Bangladesh Climate Change MRV system under the CBIT Phase 1 project. We have developed the framework, but it is not in fully functional. We are trying to develop some formal institutional arrangement among the related stakeholders. We have completed one arrangement with our Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics. Besides that, we have identified 15 more organizations whom we need to share our data for GHG inventory, adaptation, and mitigation. So we are still in a process to complete the formal institutional arrangement, and that's the challenge. Once we have completed all the institutional arrangement, I mean formal setup, then we can make the MRP platform fully functional. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I know that M&E and MRV establishment and actually design is very, very challenging for most of the developing countries, but not just for developing, also developed countries or Annex 1 countries experiencing also some challenges, barriers in their path of designing and making functional M&E and MRV systems in their countries. So recently we have an event of sharing experience with Finland, which is a developed country from the north part of the Europe, and also they've explained how the process of design and the establishment of their monitoring and evaluation system for adaptation went. So also it was at the beginning like ad hoc process, but they were not satisfied with that, and then improved and incorporated more deeply the system within the institutional and legal frameworks. And now they can say after years of the hard work that it's functional now. It is functional now. So I hope that at our last session, fifth session, where we also for the Asian countries will have experience sharing with developed country. I think it will be Japan, if I'm right. So I hope that from such experience, the developing countries can learn about the process of designing of the systems and can learn some useful lections on how to move with their own processes of development of such a system. So thank you very much, Dr. Mahmoud, for your answers. Jaipal?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mahmoud, for answering all the question, and thank you, Slezana, for the informative question. So if any participant has anything to say or anything about the previous presentation and the talk about the Bangladesh, talk from the Bangladesh. So otherwise, we have a kind of a group discussion in the next activity where we are discussing two questions. It's related to the your. We would also like to know about your country's experience through this question. So don't consider is a one-way communication. We would like to discuss, and through this discussion, everyone, all the participants will benefited. Also, they would to know that what you are doing in your country. So let me say the two questions that we have prepared for this discussion. So this is open for everyone. If anyone has anything to say, otherwise me and Slezana are already speaking, so we will continue to speak. So, but I would request if you want to say anything about the or any. This is not like a question that we are asking an answer from you, but this is just a discussion that. So we each everyone we are not expert even for anything. So if we share something, if we learn from each other, this will be a very good opportunity. So the first question is that what are your country's experience in assessing the impact and risk and vulnerabilities? Maybe in terms of the first BTR, but also if you would like to share about the past work that we are already doing, uh, whether in terms of NAP or the national communication that you have prepared. So if anyone has to say or anything that you want to say about the first question, I am inviting everyone. So please don't hesitate or anything that you would like to say. I will wait to see if any raise hand or I can see we have lots of countries. We have India, we have Philippines, we have Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar. So maybe I can ask this question to our expert. What is, yes, Lezana, what is your experience as you have also worked for the some countries also? So maybe you can share the experience from the country side.
Yes, of course, I would like to intervene here, but also I ask countries really to be free to express their opinions and knowledge about their current adaptation processes and the reporting of these processes. Uh, about the experiences in assessing impacts, risk, and vulnerabilities, I can say here for this and for other adaptation sections of the BTR that countries that regularly provide information within their national communications and also within have developed their NAPs, they have fully covered with this information. It's not necessary to produce something new if that information that you've already communicated is the latest one that you have. Also, what is important here also to say that for this type of information about assessing climate impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities, you can include also, if you have, of course, recent studies, research, scientific papers that maybe are coming from your academia. And you also can refer to information from these sources as an addition to what you already have in your NAP or in your national communication, which then will have will give additional set of information in order to allow the audience or readers of your BTR or other documents in your actual impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities. Also, what I can say specifically about impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities is that in recent national communications of many countries, we can note that the countries usually report on recent impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities, but in many cases, the countries do not provide information about potential future impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities that can be provided in accordance to your climate change projections. So this recent impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities is something that you've already observed, but future impacts and risks and vulnerabilities you also have to report, and they need to be aligned with climate change trends available and developed for your country. So maybe it would be good if some of the countries can deeply explain or provide us some experience in assessing impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities. Do they provide, for instance, future potential impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities?
This is our last sessions and activity of the today's webinar. So after that, we will close and we will meet tomorrow. But we would like to hear from you. And this will be not also helpful to us, but all the participants, those who have participated from different countries. Each country has a different situation regarding the adaptation. Some are quite advanced, some are not, some are even starting now. So of course, all of them will be benefited if you can say something about your countries.
Maybe I can add to this again to stress that information necessary to include in your BTR, whatever in related to BTR sections you have in your national communications or your national adaptation plans or adaptation communication, you can include in your adaptation chapter of BTR. So from this point of view, you just can identify your information sources within your existing documents and form BTR adaptation chapter out of already existing information. So I guess that that is not making a burden in comparing to the other chapters of the BTRs, like developing and reporting on GHG inventory or NDC outcomes and results, etc., etc. And this adaptation section is easiest to report with documents that you already have. So I can see here one question, one hand raised. So please unmute your microphone and ask the question.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, hi. Firstly, hi to everyone, and a very good presentation. And the first session which we had last time on the BTR submissions and the MRVs, and this time also. So thank you both of you. With respect to the guiding questions for discussions, one thing which came to my mind is from an Indian perspective, that we are in the process of developing our biennial transparency report, for which is due for submission this year, and the next is the national adaptation plan, which is proposed to be submitted next year. So one discussion which you was talking about is assessing the impacts and risks. So the Department of Science and Technology has recently come out with the climate vulnerability atlas. So this atlas maps the vulnerability of different states and districts based on the various indicators like temperature and also the rainfall patterns and socioeconomic factors. Apart from this, there is also an agricultural risk assessment, which India does through its institutions known as the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, the ICAR. And they do regular assessments to understand the impacts of climate change on agriculture. So one thing which we can say, for example, they analyze how shifting monsoon patterns and rising temperatures actually help affect the crop yield. So this data basically helps in developing resilient crop varieties and also working on adaptive farming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for sharing the experience of the India. Maybe Sledana, you can go for the second question.
Yes, just to comment this, the recent studies are the one that you will use for your reports. And I'm glad that you are performing these assessments on the regular basis. So, which is great that you have very, very recent information. And it's important also that assess vulnerabilities and risks and impacts assessment is actually base for your adaptation planning. So you need to assess your basic information that you have now, and also to assess future trend for the impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities in order to plan accordingly. So that's why it's important to take in consideration future climate trends to be able to plan your adaptation in the future. Jaypal?
Yeah. So okay, so I am not seeing any question in the chat.
That's absolutely right. And taking cue from the first session also, you had mentioned that it's important. It'll be good if both the National Adaptation Plan as well as the BTRs can be submitted together. Just to follow up to that.
Okay, so I think we are at the end of the today's session. And if there is anything that even after this session, if you have any question, then we are happy to answer. Just drop an email to us. But with this today's session, I would like to thank all the participants for all the question and also to sharing the experience. And today we see everything about the national circumstances, framework, institutional arrangement, the impact risks, vulnerability, what are the barriers, also show the experience, case studies from the different countries. So with this, I would like to thank to our speaker, Ms. Rejana, for this very informative presentation and information to share with all these Asian countries. Also, our guest speaker, Mr. Mohammad Hussain from the Bangladesh, for this very informative presentation about the work that they are doing. So, with this, I would also like to remind you that we still have a 3 webinar left in the series of webinar. So the third webinar, the next one will be tomorrow, the same time. So I would also encourage all of you to attend all the remaining session to gain the full understanding of the reporting requirement, and also to share your insight with the colleagues from all the Asian Transparency Network. So thank you once again for your active participation. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar tomorrow at the same time. And if you have any question in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through email. And we would also share all the presentation in a short, maybe within 1 hour in your email ID. And with the presentation, we will also share the link for the tomorrow's webinar. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and staying with us more than 2 hours. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much for staying with us at this, as we called, adaptation marathon. And I wish to all of you a really great day. Thank you and see you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.